Christmas had always been the one time of year when I believed family mattered more than anything else. Every December, no matter how busy life became, I returned to my parents' house, the same old red and gold decorations hung from the walls. The same Christmas tree stood in the corner of the living room, slightly crooked because my father always insisted on putting it up himself. And every year, my mother cooked enough food to feed twice as many people as we actually had. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. That was why the message I received one cold December morning felt so strange. My younger sister, Emily, had created a new family group chat. I noticed it only because my mother accidentally sent me a photograph meant for that group. I opened the picture. Everyone was there, my parents, Emily, my older brother Daniel, their spouses, even our cousins. They were standing around the Christmas tree, laughing. I stared at the picture for several seconds. I wasn't angry, not yet. I simply wondered why nobody had mentioned the gathering to me. I typed, "Looks like everyone is getting ready for Christmas early." My mother didn't reply. Instead, a private message appeared from Emily. "Hey, don't take this the wrong way." My stomach tightened. Whenever someone started with those words, I already knew something was wrong. "What happened?" I asked. Her response came a minute later. "Mom and Dad want Christmas to be different this year." "Different how?" She didn't answer immediately. Then finally, "They want it to be parents only." I frowned. "Parents only, yeah." I stared at the screen. "I'm their daughter, I know, so why wouldn't I be there?" Another long pause. Then she wrote, "Please don't make this a big thing." My heart sank. I called my mother. She answered after several rings. "Mom, what's going on?" There was silence on the other end. "Emily told you." "Told me what?" "That Christmas is going to be smaller this year." "Why?" "We just want some peace." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Mom, have I ever caused problems at Christmas?" "No." "Have I ever refused to help?" "No." "Then why am I being excluded?" She sighed. "It's not personal." I almost laughed. How could being excluded from your own family's Christmas not be personal? "Mom, I'm your daughter, I know. Then tell me the truth." Her voice became quieter. "We just don't want you there this year." I felt something inside me crack. "Why? You're making this harder than it needs to be." I closed my eyes. Then I heard my father speaking in the background. "Just tell her." My mother took a breath. "You're not welcome at Christmas this year." The words were simple, but they destroyed something I had spent my entire life believing. I whispered, "Okay." My mother sounded relieved. "Good, don't be dramatic about it." I stared at the wall. "I won't." Then she hung up. I remained sitting there for several minutes. No tears, no shouting, just silence. My phone buzzed again. "Emily, I'm sorry. Maybe we can do something after Christmas." I typed, "Don't worry." Then I deleted it. I tried again. "Have a nice Christmas." I sent it. For the first time, I realized I had spent years trying to earn a place at a table where I was supposed to belong automatically. That evening, I opened my laptop. I searched for luxury Christmas cruises. I had dreamed about taking one for years, but there had always been an excuse. Work, money, family responsibilities, not anymore. One cruise caught my attention. 7 nights through the Caribbean. Luxury suite, private balcony, fine dining, Christmas celebrations, live entertainment, ocean views. I stared at the booking screen, then I smiled. If my family didn't want me at their Christmas table, I would create a Christmas of my own. I entered my information, confirmed the reservation, and when the confirmation email appeared, I whispered to myself, "Merry Christmas." I didn't know it yet, but that single booking would become the beginning of the sweetest revenge of my life. 3 days before Christmas, my mother called me. I almost didn't answer. For a few seconds, I watched her name glowing on my phone screen, wondering what she could possibly want now. Finally, I answered, "Hello, are you okay?" she asked. I almost smiled. "You told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas. Why wouldn't I be okay?" There was a long silence. "We didn't mean to hurt you, but you did." My mother sighed. "We thought you would understand." "I understand perfectly. You've been very quiet." "There's nothing left to say." She hesitated. "Are you going somewhere for Christmas?" I looked at the suitcase sitting beside my bed. Yes. Where? On a cruise. A cruise, yes. Over Christmas, yes. My mother's voice changed. Are you going alone? Yes. She laughed nervously. You're serious. Very. Where are you going? The Caribbean. Silence. I could almost imagine her face. She had probably expected me to spend Christmas alone in my apartment, feeling sorry for myself. Instead, I had made other plans. That's nice, she finally said. Thank you. Don't spend too much money just because you're upset. I looked at my suitcase. This isn't because I'm upset. Then why? Because I wanted to do something for myself. She didn't respond. A few seconds later, she said, We'll talk after Christmas. Okay. I ended the call. The next morning, I drove to the port. The moment I saw the cruise ship, I stopped. It was enormous. Bright lights decorated the entrance, and a giant Christmas tree stood inside the main atrium. People were laughing as they boarded. Families carried presents. Couples took photographs. Children ran around excitedly. For one brief moment, I wondered if I had made a mistake. Then I remembered my mother's words, "You're not welcome at Christmas." I picked up my suitcase and walked on board. The staff welcomed me warmly. No one asked why I was traveling alone. No one made me feel unwanted. No one treated me like a problem. They simply smiled and said, "Merry Christmas." Those 2 words nearly made me cry. That evening, I stood on my private balcony as the ship slowly moved away from the harbor. The city lights became smaller. Then smaller. Eventually, they disappeared. I watched the dark ocean stretching endlessly in front of me. For the first time in days, I could breathe. I ordered dinner to my room. Then I sat outside under the stars. I raised my glass to new beginnings. Back home, my family was sitting around the Christmas dinner table. The table was decorated beautifully. My mother had prepared all the traditional dishes. My father sat at the head. Emily and Daniel were laughing. Everything looked perfect until my cousin Sarah asked, "Where is she?" The room became quiet. My mother continued serving food. She decided not to come. Sarah frowned. "Didn't you invite her?" My father answered calmly. This Christmas was supposed to be for parents. Sarah looked confused, but she's your daughter. Emily quickly interrupted. "Can we please not talk about this?" Sarah didn't say anything. Then Daniel's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. His expression suddenly changed. "What?" Emily asked. He turned the phone toward her. It was a photograph of me. I was standing on the deck of the cruise ship. Behind me, Christmas lights covered the entire ship. The ocean stretched behind me, glowing beneath the sunset. Under the photograph, I had written, "Sometimes the greatest gift is learning that you don't need anyone's permission to enjoy your life." Emily stared at the screen. My mother slowly took the phone from her. "She looks happy," Sarah said. Nobody answered. Then another picture appeared, me at a beautiful dinner. Then another, me standing beside the Christmas tree. Then another, me watching the sunset from my balcony. I wasn't posting those pictures to make anyone jealous. I wasn't thinking about my family at all. For the first time, I was simply enjoying myself. But back home, they were beginning to understand something they hadn't expected. Their rejection hadn't broken me. It had set me free, and they had no idea that the real story behind my Christmas cruise was about to become much bigger than a vacation. By the 3rd morning of the cruise, I had almost stopped thinking about my family. Almost. I woke up early, stepped onto my balcony, and watched the sun rise over the Caribbean. The water looked endless, painted gold by the morning light. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing anywhere. No family arguments, no expectations, no guilt, just peace. I ordered breakfast and spent the morning walking around the ship. Every hallway seemed decorated for Christmas. There were wreaths on the doors, lights hanging from the ceiling, and music playing throughout the ship. I was beginning to realize that being alone wasn't the same as being lonely. Then my phone rang. It was Sarah, my cousin. I answered, "Hey," her voice sounded serious. "Are you somewhere private?" I frowned. "Yeah, why?" "I need to tell you something." "What happened?" She hesitated. "I found something about Grandpa." My smile disappeared. "What about him?" "Do you remember the old furniture business he owned?" "Of course." Well, I was helping Mom organize some old paperwork yesterday, and I found documents from his estate. My heart started beating faster. What kind of documents? Legal documents. I sat down. Sarah continued. There was a property. What property? The downtown commercial building. I immediately remembered it. My grandfather had owned the building for decades. After his death, I had heard my parents mention it several times, but nobody had ever explained what happened to it. What about it? Sarah lowered her voice. You own it. I laughed. No, I don't. You do. Sarah, that building was Grandpa's. Not anymore? She explained that my grandfather had placed the property into a trust before he died, and according to the documents, I had been named the primary beneficiary. I couldn't speak. Why me? Sarah answered softly. There's a letter. What does it say? He said you were the only grandchild who stayed with him during his final year. He remembered how you brought him meals, sat with him, and listened to his stories when everyone else was busy. My eyes filled with tears. I remembered those days. My grandfather had always told me, people remember who shows up when nobody else does. I had never realized he was talking about me. Sarah continued, the property is worth a lot now. How much? She told me. I couldn't believe it. It was worth several times more than it had been when Grandpa died. Then something clicked. My father's questions suddenly made sense. The conversations about money, the questions about the building, the strange comments about how family assets should stay in the family. Even Emily asking me a few months earlier whether I would ever consider selling it. They knew, or at least they suspected. My stomach turned. Sarah, when did they find out? I don't know. Does Dad know about the trust? I think so. I stared at the ocean. Suddenly, the Christmas exclusion didn't feel random anymore. Maybe they hadn't just wanted a peaceful Christmas. Maybe there was something else behind it. That evening, I contacted the attorney who had handled Grandpa's estate. He confirmed everything. The property was legally mine. There was no misunderstanding, no hidden condition, no requirement to share it with anyone. I sat quietly after the call ended. Part of me was furious. Another part was heartbroken. My family had treated me like I wasn't welcome. Yet they apparently had no problem wanting something that belonged to me. I could have called my father immediately. I could have confronted Emily. I could have demanded answers. Instead, I did something different. I opened my notebook. At the top of the page, I wrote, "What would Grandpa want me to do?" I remembered his voice. Money disappears. What you build for people stays. I looked out at the ocean. Then an idea came to me. I wouldn't sell the building. I would renovate it. I would turn it into a community center. Affordable spaces for small businesses, a free event hall, a place where struggling families could hold celebrations without worrying about money. And every Christmas I would host a dinner there, a dinner where nobody would ever hear the words, "You're not welcome." I smiled through my tears. For years, I thought my family's rejection had taken something from me. Now I understood. It had given me the courage to stop begging for love from people who had forgotten how valuable I was. And I wasn't finished yet, because when I returned home, my family was going to learn the truth, not through an angry argument, not through revenge, but through the one thing they never expected from me, strength. When my cruise finally returned to port, I stepped off the ship carrying one suitcase and a completely different heart. A week earlier, I had boarded that ship feeling rejected. Now I felt free. I drove home, unpacked, and waited. I knew my family would eventually contact me. I wasn't wrong. The next afternoon, my father called. "Come over, we need to talk." His voice was serious. I already knew what the conversation was about. I went to my parents' house that evening. Everyone was there. My mother, my father, Emily, Daniel. Nobody smiled when I walked inside. My father pointed toward a chair. "Sit down." I sat. He looked at me. "Where have you been?" "On my cruise, we know." I nodded. "Okay." Emily crossed her arms. "You really embarrassed us." I looked at her. "How?" "You kept posting pictures." "I was on vacation. You knew we'd see them." I smiled slightly. "I didn't post them for you." My mother interrupted. "Can we stop arguing?" I looked at her. I wasn't arguing. The room became quiet. Then my father leaned forward. We need to discuss Grandpa's property. There it was, the real reason. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. I already know. My father's face changed. Know what? I know about the trust. Nobody moved. I know Grandpa left the building to me. Emily looked at my father. Dad, he remained silent. I continued, and I know you've been planning to convince me to sell it. My mother looked uncomfortable. That's not fair, isn't it? We only wanted what was best for the family. I looked at her. Then why did you exclude me from Christmas? Nobody answered. That silence told me everything. I opened the folder. I spoke with Grandpa's attorney. My father reached for the papers. I stopped him. You don't need to read them. They're clear. He looked angry. You're going to keep the property. Yes. What are you going to do with it? I took a breath. I'm going to renovate it. Emily frowned. For what? A community center. They stared at me. I explained everything. Affordable spaces for small businesses, a free event hall, community programs, and a large Christmas dinner every year for families who couldn't afford one. My father shook his head. You're spending a fortune on strangers. I looked directly at him. Maybe. Then I added quietly, but I know what it feels like to be told you're not welcome. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You're punishing us. No. I shook my head. I'm not punishing anyone. Then what is this? Moving forward. Nobody spoke. Months passed. The building was transformed. The old walls were repaired. The rooms were renovated. The entrance received beautiful Christmas lights, and above the front doors I placed a small plaque. It read, no one should ever have to beg for a place at the table. On opening night, hundreds of people arrived. Families, children, elderly couples, single parents, people who had nowhere else to celebrate. There was music, food, laughter, and enough seats for everyone. My family came too. My mother stood beneath the plaque for several minutes. Then she walked toward me. I was wrong. She whispered. I didn't answer immediately. She continued. We thought excluding you would make Christmas easier. I smiled sadly. It taught me something. What? That I don't need to chase people who don't want me around. She began crying. Then my father approached. He looked older than I remembered. I made a mistake. I looked at him. You did. He nodded. I thought family meant controlling what everyone had. And now, he looked around the room. Now I think family means making sure nobody feels alone. I smiled. That was the first thing he had said in years that truly mattered to me. He hugged me. For a moment, I considered pulling away. But I didn't, because forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant refusing to let the past control my future. Later that night, I stood near the Christmas tree and watched families laughing together. My mother was helping serve food. My father was talking to some of the children. Emily was carrying plates to the tables. I looked around. The people who once told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas were now helping me make sure everyone else had a place. And I finally understood the sweetest revenge. It wasn't making them suffer. It wasn't proving I was richer. It wasn't watching them regret their decision. It was becoming so happy that their rejection no longer had the power to hurt me. They had told me I wasn't welcome at their Christmas. So I created a Christmas where everyone was welcome. And that became the greatest gift they ever gave me. Because sometimes, losing your place at someone else's table is exactly how you discover that you were meant to build your own.